With 10:03 having arrived, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 10th, 2015 County Board meeting to order. I'd like to ask our county clerk to call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Here.
Barrio. Here. Castro. Davis. Here. Ford. Here. Foz. Here. Gilliam. Here. Heyman. Here. Polshite. Here. Ishmael. Here. Kenyon. Here. Bazak. Here. Leonard. Here. Lewis. Here. Martin. Here. Molina.
Present.
Pollock. Here. Sheffro. Here. Silva.
Here.
Smith. Here. Starrett.
Present.
Wadnicki.
Here.
Okay, we have the quorum. Thank you, everybody, for coming this morning. I'd like to welcome the people in our audience. I'd like to ask Miss Meryl Swidler and her parents, Scott and Gail Swidler, to come to the microphone to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd come forward, if everyone would rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would remain standing, please. I'd like to ask Ken Anderson to come forward, lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Lord Jesus, we just thank you for this time to be together. I pray for wisdom and discernment for each of these board members as they make these decisions, short-term and long-term. I pray that they would have servants' hearts and just would see the mission before them and accomplish those things that are necessary. So we just pray your wisdom here today, and we just thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you to the Swidlers and to Ken Anderson, our Environmental and Water Resources Director. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the January 13th, 2015 meeting? So moved by Mr. Kozarek, second by Ms. Allen. Are there any thoughts, comments, changes? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. And the minutes are approved. Okay, now I'm going to turn the meeting over to Kurt Kozarek, but I'd like to invite Miss Meryl Swidler and her proud parents, Scott and Gail, and board member Kurt Kozarek to come forward. Meryl is the 2014 WAKO Gold Medal winner. And I believe that Mr. Kozarek is going to read a certificate and present Meryl with the plaque.
Because of her, we have the safest block in my entire but I want to bring this to the committee as a whole, because I think that the amount of perseverance, dedication, and the components that she's done with her educational career has just been such a true example for other people her age, people our own age, to follow. So without further ado, whereas the County of Kane recognizes extraordinary young adults whose dedication and achievements serve as inspiration for others in the community. And whereas Gilbert's resident, Meryl Swidler, has achieved the rank of second-degree black belt from Sensei Rob Zabilski, which is a good Irish name, at Keys Martial Arts Academy. And whereas Ms. Swidler is the 2013 and 2014 reigning national champion and 2013 world champion in creative forms, creative weapons, and extreme forms through the World Karate and Kickboxing Commission, WKC. And whereas Ms. Swidler is the 2014 U.S. National Championship gold medal winner for low kick, girls 16 and 17 years, through the World Association of Kickboxing Organization, WAKO. And whereas Ms. Swidler won the 2014 North American Light Contact Division, girls 16 and 17 in 2014. Now, therefore, on this 10th day of February 2015, be it resolved that the County of Kane commends Ms. Swidler for the dedication, personal training, and commitment to achieving these national and international awards. Congratulations.
Okay, congratulations, and thank you very much, Mr. Kozarek. Next on the agenda, we have speakers on agenda items. I don't have any listed here for not for agenda items, but later on in the program, we have 5 speakers on non-agenda items. So we'll have that later in the program. Next on the agenda, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 15-17, recognizing the 2014 WAKO Gold Medal winner, Meryl Swidler. May I have a motion? Mr. Kozarek, second by Mr. Heyman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimously. So. Okay, next, zoning petitions, 2 today. I'd like to ask Development Committee Chairman Kurt Kozarek to discuss and make a motion to approve these zoning petitions.
Sure. The first petition, 4334, is in Hampshire Township. It is rezoning from F District farming to E1 District estate residential. There were no objectors. The petitioner is here. If there was any questions of the board, I'll move that motion.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Kozarek, second by Mr. Martin. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Ms. Allen?
My question is the usual one. Do we know how many lots are planned for this property? And if there were any stormwater issues that were connected to the proposal as it came through committee?
Petitioner answered that I believe there's very few lots on this property, but the exact number,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? If not, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Auger.
Yes.
Ferrero.
Yes.
Castro. Pardon me. Davis.
Yes.
Ford. Yes. Franz.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Holscheit.
Yes.
Ishmael.
Yes.
Kenyon. Yes. Kozarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina.
Yes.
Pollock.
Yes.
Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Winicki.
Okay, motion passes. Next, Mr. Kozarek.
The next petition, 4335, is in Virgil Township. It is rezoning of an F District farming to E1 District estate residential. Development did have one stipulation, and that was to add an easement access for the property to the west to be recorded within 30 days of the county board approval. The petitioner has agreed to it, and I believe Keith has the document already put together. There were no objectors. The petitioner is here to answer any questions you might have, and I'll make the motion.
Okay, so moved by Mr. Kozarek.
A second.
Second by Ms. Winicki. Are there any comments, questions, thoughts? Ms. Allen?
May I ask the same question? How many lots are planned for the property?
And there is one, and there is no stormwater issues.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other thoughts, comments, questions, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Ferrero.
Yes.
Davis. Yes. Ford. Yes. Franz.
Yes.
Gillum.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Holscheit.
Yes.
Ishmael. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kozarek.
Yes.
Leonard. Lewis. Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Pollock. Shefflo.
Yes.
Silva. Smith. Sterrett.
Yes.
Winicki.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, next are resolutions and ordinances. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Mr. Ishmael?
1550 and 1551.
Number 1550 and 1551.
No, I'm just abstaining from that vote.
I'm sorry?
I'm abstaining from that vote.
Oh, okay, so you just like to put on the record that you're abstaining from that vote?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hoshite?
1521, I need to abstain on.
1521, did you say? Yes. Okay. Okay, it'll be so noted.
Also abstain from 1521.
Okay, so noted. Mr. Smith? Anything else? Okay,
One more. 1519, please.
sorry.
1519,
And what is your desire on 1519?
to have further discussion. I'd like
To have it removed
consent.
from the consent
Yes.
agenda? Okay. Any others?
Abstain from 1521.
Abstention from 1521, Mr. Lewis? Mr. Kenyon? Okay, Mr. Kenyon abstaining from Resolution 1521, so noted? Okay. Okay, so may I have a motion to second, or a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions as noted? We'll take one off the consent agenda, and there will be the notations of those who are abstaining from the ones that have been enumerated. So moved by Ms. Sterrett, second by Mr. Leonard. And clerk, please call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Ferrero.
Yes.
Davis. Ford. Yes. Franz. Yes. Gillum.
Yes.
Hayman.
Yes.
Hoshite.
Yes.
Ishmael. Yes. Kenyon. Yes. Kazarick.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis. Yes. Martin. Yes. Molina.
Yes.
Pollock. Sheffler.
Yes.
Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay, so that motion passes. Okay, now we have one item that's been asked to be removed from the consent agenda. That is Resolution 1519. Mr. Davis, would you like to move it?
Sure.
Okay, so
move it so
Mr.
we can have
Davis
some
moves it.
discussion.
Is there a second for discussion? Mr. Ford? Mr. Davis?
I was just hoping for some clarification. I'm not familiar with this one and what the scope of, it says it on capital projects.
All right.
So any and all capital projects with,
All right, for background on that, I'll ask both Mr. Ford, Mr. Biggs are available. What would be your preference, Mr. Ford?
Or to,
Okay.
Don.
Mr. Biggs, could you give us the background on
Yes,
this?
sir. Every year we do capital projects. So the board actually in December approved the projects for this year. There's roughly $5 million worth of projects. Those projects, some of those projects require architectural design and bidding process and everything, and that's what this is strictly for, is capital projects that was approved by the county board in December.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
don't we deal with those on an individual basis as they come up in terms of,
Well,
any part of the scope of it? Don't we issue, RFPs and RFQs for each one as they come up? I'm just trying to understand the scope of this service.
This year's projects is approximately 17 that would require some design effects with the architect's processes. Basically, the state law requires you to use an architectural design to do the improvements for HVAC and other projects that we're doing, such as the elevator project and that. So instead of going through an RFP process, which we've already done in previous years for Corden and Clark and for the other projects that we've done within the county, the recommendation is to provide one architect to help us process our documents as fast as possible so we can complete these in a timely manner this year.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
Is there a time frame involved with this? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Is there a
Actually,
sunset to this particular agreement?
Yes, every year we have to renew it.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Ford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we're trying to do here is to make sure as we look at our capital plan that we look at it as a whole, not individually, and we stay on top of it. There's a lot of details that we want to look at to make sure that it's not just a schematic, but we want to look at the heart of the projects, and this allow us to just dig a little bit deeper than just the surface, so we know what we're getting into.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kenyon?
I want to say I can appreciate being able to work with one firm. You don't want to reinvent the wheel every week and re-educate them. And they've all applied. They all got due consideration. So I think it's a good way to move your job along faster and easier for everybody.
Thank you very much. No other questions, comments? I'll ask clerk to call the roll.
Ellen.
Aye.
Auger.
Yes.
Ferrero.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Franz. Yes. Gillum. Yes. Hayman. Yes. Hoshait.
Yes.
Ishmael. Yes. Kenyon.
Yes?
Kazarick.
Yes.
Leonard. Yes. Lewis. Yes. Martin. Yes. Molina.
Yes.
Pollock. Yes. Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva. Yes. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Winnicki.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is an ordinance, number 1552, amending annual appropriation ordinance in response to forfeited U.S. Marshal Service revenue. Let's see. We've discussed this at the Finance Committee and then Executive Committee, but because we wanted to give at least a brief presentation to everyone on the board, it's so important. I've asked Mr. Onsick if he'd come forward and basically give the same presentation, please. Let's see. Actually, could I ask for a motion to approve this ordinance? So moved by Chairman of Finance Committee John Hoshait, second by Teresa. You're on the Judiciary Committee and
Jobs.
And on the jobs. Okay, so second by Ms. Barrero. Okay, Mr. Onsick.
This ordinance that is before you is in response to the forfeiture of the U.S. Marshal Service revenue. The brief presentation will establish the context in which the ordinance was drafted, and it will walk us through each clause of the ordinance. Each clause of the ordinance outlines what action occurred, what was the direct result of that action, what is the financial impact of that result, how is the county board authorized to respond, and what is the response of the county board. We begin by noting the simple fact that the revenue is part of the sheriff's office budget. Therefore, he is accountable just as any other elected official or department head for the revenue side as well as the expenditure side of his budget. This slide presents the Sheriff's Office General Fund revenue and expenditures, both actual and budget. The first four columns represent the actual revenue and expenditures for the years 2011 through 2014. The last column is the budget for 2015. The top section of the slide represents the revenue, and the bottom portion represents the expenditures. The highlighted figures in the top portion highlights the actual and the budgeted revenue from the U.S. Marshal Service for housing federal detainees. There is also a line near the bottom of the slide that indicates the adult prisoner board and care budget, and this is the expense the county would incur for housing detainees outside of the county. Those two line items are important as we proceed with the presentation. So from this previous slide, it's clear that $2.5 million of revenue was budgeted for the 2015 fiscal year for U.S. Marshal Service revenue. The amount of $2,500,000 was submitted by the Sheriff's Office during the 2015 budgeting process and was considered their best estimate for the revenue that we'd be collecting in this current fiscal year. And just to be clear, it was not an amount that was imposed upon the Sheriff's Office, but it was submitted by the Sheriff's Office. And this particular slide now just simply focuses on that last column that was presented a few slides earlier. This is the revenue side for 2015, and this is what we must deal with today. Again, I'll just point out that it's $2.5 million that's budgeted for U.S. Marshal revenues for housing federal detainees. And then the bottom line item there is the adult prisoner board and care budget for the expenditure side of housing detainees outside of the county, and that was for $225,000. The first clause of the ordinance states the simple fact of what took place. On December 15th, 2014, the Kane County Sheriff notified the U.S. Marshal Service that the agreement for housing federal detainees in the Kane County Sheriff's Department Adult Justice Center was being terminated. This second clause, in italics on the bottom there, is what states the result of that action. On January 15th, 2015, in response to this notice of termination, the U.S. Marshal Service removed 43 federal detainees from the Kane County Sheriff's Department Adult Justice Center. So what is the financial impact of reducing this prisoner count? If you consider the rate of $88.32 per prisoner per day, we begin losing a total of $3,798 a day, or about $115,000 per month. If it were to continue over a year's time, it totals $1.4 million. What is the significance of this lost revenue? If we were to lose the $1.4 million resulting from just that loss of 43 detainees, that equates to the funding for 13.6 correctional officers. If we lose the entire amount that was budgeted, that equates to the funding for 24.4 correctional officers. From a larger perspective, if we were to lose the $1.4 million, that's the funding to operate roughly one jail pod. It's 9.4% of the sheriff's corrections budget. It's 5.3% of the sheriff's total general fund budget, and that equates to 4.2% of property tax increase that was otherwise avoided. If we were to lose the $2.5 million, the total amount that was budgeted for the year, that's funding to operate 2 jail pods. It's 16.9% of the sheriff's corrections budget. It's 9.5% of the total budget in the general fund for the sheriff, and it amounts to 7.6% of property tax that was otherwise avoided. This leads us to the next two clauses of the ordinance. The first clause quantifies the lost revenue as being $115,000 per month, and the second clause acknowledges the significance of that lost revenue. Then this leads us to the basis of the response. If we cannot replace the revenue, the budget must be cut. It's as simple as that. The county board is authorized by state statute to amend the budget in response to a significant reduction in revenue. I've cited that statute here for you, and I've highlighted the most pertinent wording of the statute, and that is if the county board determines by a 2/3 vote of all members that revenue received or to be received by the county for the then present fiscal year totals an amount substantially less than that was projected at the time of adoption of the annual budget, such board by like vote may adopt an amended budget for the remainder of the present fiscal year. This next clause of the ordinance presents the rationale for where the budget should be amended. since the revenue was voluntarily forfeited by the sheriff, it should be balanced by an equivalent cut to the sheriff's expenditure budget. This next clause of the ordinance, again, it's the italicized wording at the bottom of the slide, presents the rationale for the amount of the budget cut. $225,000 is the amount that's budgeted for adult prisoner board and care. This is the line item that was specifically added back into the sheriff's office budget in the year 2014 as a tool, and it was justified, one of the many justifications for it, but the primary justification was to be used as a tool by the sheriff to maximize the space for housing federal detainees and thereby maximizing the revenue that would be earned from housing those detainees. This, just to give you a little background on this, that particular line item was removed from the sheriff's office budget in the year 2009. So it had not been a part of the budget until 2014. This slide just gives a different perspective, a different way to look at the $225,000 cut as being reasonable from other perspectives as well. If you look at it in terms of it being equated to 2 months' worth of the forfeited U.S. Marshal Service revenue, that would make this a reasonable amount for an initial cut to the budget. Also, it's roughly 2% of the total revenue budget. Again, is just an initial budget cut that was presented based on the facts that we had at the time that this ordinance was drafted. And at that point, we were optimistic and hopeful that this could be turned around, but we did need to take action immediately, and so this we thought would be a reasonable first step. And this clause specifies then the general ledger account numbers that the budget adjustments would be made from, but it also provides an opportunity for the sheriff to specify or to designate any other line items of his choosing, and he would have 5 business days from the passage of this ordinance to make that designation. The next clause of the ordinance directs the sheriff to resume reporting of the U.S. Marshal Service revenue and out-of-county housing costs. And this is important because we need to have a better way of monitoring what is happening so that we can make further determinations if needed. And this last clause makes it clear that there may be further budget adjustments that may be necessary as a result of monitoring the situation. And I'll just leave the slide that states the ordinance or the state statute that gives the county board the authority to take this action.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Onsick. Just to clarify, the significant revenue decrease in the ordinance is the $225,000 that we were sure of when we began the process, and I think that Mr. Onsick laid that out, not the larger amount that has become apparent that we're going to need to be addressing in next meetings. I'd also like to confirm that that was at the Executive Committee meeting, our State's Attorney Joe McMahon mentioned that is, that those are some of the available options to the board. We'll be going into naturally much more detail at the Judiciary Committee, and then that I believe that the next meeting of that committee is on February 24th, 9 a.m. Naturally, any board members are invited to attend that. Okay. Do we have any questions or thoughts from board members? Ms. Wonicky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this question would, I think, be for Joe Onsick or possibly John. I'm just curious, historically, why in 2009 the sheriff removed the $2.5 million from his budget, but then in 2014 put it back in his budget for budget year 2015. Now, that was a little bit before Joe's time, so I recognize that.
I don't know the specific reasons, but from looking back, as best as I can ascertain, I believe it was originally part of the budget to cover that time frame in which the correctional facility was just prior to its existence, the new facility, and prior to its operating at full capacity, and it was removed once that capacity was then present within our own ability to house the prisoners. So that was removed. There's always a need, as I understand it, to house some prisoners outside of the county. So there's always been an expense in that line item. But there has not always been a budget for that line item. And the budget itself was removed in 2009, and it was put back in 2014. And as I understood it from Director of Finance, the rationale that I was looking at, which justified putting it back in, was that this was went hand in hand with the increased revenue that was coming in from the U.S. Marshal Service, and to allow the sheriff a budget to work with to maximize that revenue.
Now, if I can clarify, Ms. Wojnicki, is your question regarding the expenditure line, which is, I think, what Mr. Onsick just answered, or were you referring to the revenue line of the $2.5 million? Was it expenditure line or revenue line?
Well, all I hear is that in 2009, the $2.5 million was removed from the sheriff's budget, and then in 2014, for budget year 2015, it was put back into the budget.
So your question has to do with the revenue line, not the expenditure line, which is what I think that,
What I think Joe
because
talked
it's almost the more interesting story, and I know the one that had been, was the expenditure, but I think that at the heart of that question is there responsibility for revenue in the sheriff's office, and has that been something that has been historically the case? Can you give a little bit of history as far as the revenue line?
I don't have the revenue budget information in front of me that I can refer to. It was not removed. When the removal of the line item was referring to the expenditure line item. So I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, but that's what that was referring to. The revenue itself has been a more recent line item in the sheriff's budget. I don't specifically remember when it was added in, but it has been growing each year, and the budget for that revenue has been growing accordingly to the revenue that was actually received. And I believe the revenue received in 2014 was $2.6 million. So you can see how the budget for 2015 was based on the experience from 2014.
I think that the reason why Joe showed the history of the revenue line and the amounts is to demonstrate the role that's played in the finance of the sheriff's office historically.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Davis?
Joe, do we have on the expense side, what's the cost per day of somebody in the jail, regardless of the source?
It really would depend on what you're referring to by cost. If you're just talking about direct cost, cost of food, clothing, not the cost of the correctional officers that would be overseeing them, that is a much smaller amount. I do have an estimate here, and these are from my own records. If you were to look at the medical dental hospital care, the disposal costs, the water, the sewer, the food, the clothing, if you were to take all of that and divide it by the number of prisoners we had last year, that's roughly $14 per prisoner per day.
Now, we're going to be going into, as I believe that all of us recognize, we're going to be going into this detail because we have a much larger challenge that all of us together working with the sheriff's office need to tackle. Proper place to go into all that detail will be at the Judiciary Committee meeting. I would like to invite any member and all members of the board that if you'd like to participate in that, come to those meetings and they'll be going into that detail. Again, February 24th, 9 a.m., you're invited to come. Okay, others? Mr. Kenyon?
Oh, we can only turn the clock back, my friends. And again, we're at a difficult time, but we have to do this. We have to face this and adjust the budget. I will say that moving forward, we must work ourselves to work with the sheriff in his office. Now, the sheriff, Pat Perez, had an academy. And do you know how many people attended the academy, my friends? 2. Sarah Lawson and I attended the academy at different times, but it's a very good way to see how much work the sheriff's office does. It's unbelievable. I think that they do a lot of work for the people that they have, and the jail is run remarkably well, remarkably well. So we need to work with the sheriff. We need to work with the sheriff and go over this bump in the road.
Big bump.
It's a big bump, but let's not build a wall or anything dumb. He's our sheriff. He's working for the county. He's a very honest person. So let's work with him in making do with what we've got. But I'll have to endorse voting to change the budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kenyon. I think that it's been stated frequently by many members of the board that we all will be working with the sheriff to solve this problem. It's also true that the sheriff will naturally need to work with us. So, Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, can we have somebody turn the lights back on? I don't want anybody to say that we're making these decisions in the dark.
Don't have. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Mr. Smith? Okay. Other comments or questions before we go ahead and take the vote? Okay, if not, our county clerk will take the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Barrow. Castro. Whoops, excuse me. Davist.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Franz.
Yes.
Gilliam. Heyman.
Yes.
Holscheit.
Yes?
Ismail. Kenyon. Kazarick.
Yes.
Leonard. Lewis. Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Pollock. Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Starrett. Winnicki.
Yes.
You have the three-quarter votes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. The statute specifies that there needs to be, is it 2/3 or 3/4? 2/3 vote, and that hurdle's cleared, and the motion passes by the 2/3. Okay, next on the agenda is our resolution number 1553, and unfortunately, this is a sadder duty for the board to perform. Many of us attended the wake for Jesse Vasquez. They were some of the longest lines in the history of all of us attending wakes. Some of us also had a chance to stop over at the funeral the next morning. And again, a sad time for our board. Now, I was told a few minutes ago that perhaps my eyes are not what they used to be when I was a younger man. But I understand that Mrs. Vasquez may have joined us in the audience. Is that true by any chance? Ms. Vasquez, would you please rise and let us recognize Ms. Vasquez and your family and the service that you've all provided, and I would ask for a round of applause. Please rise. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending today, Ms. Vasquez. May I have, let's see, we are following the, state statute as far as declaring a vacancy. It's one of the duties of the board. Within 3 days, the notice is to go out to the County Central Committee. We're sending out because it doesn't specify who the letter goes out to, but the appointment comes from the party from which the person who's either deceased or leaves the board comes from that party. So the letter will be going out to Mr. Gately, who's the chairman of the Democrat Central Committee. And then I also will invite whoever would like to participate in giving recommendations. I will certainly be asking Ron Ford and Teresa Barrero, other members of the delegation and the board who are Brian Pollock, also from Aurora, Myrna Molina, for their thoughts on who a good replacement. Naturally, large shoes to fill. What we're going to be looking for, three things: character, competence, and independence. We'll also then provide out to the newspapers. We'll ask that our newspapers announce that we're considering candidates. They need to be within that district. I believe that it's the 8th district, and the person needs to be a voter in, I believe, the last Democrat primary. So, are there any thoughts or comments? Oh, excuse me. First, a motion. May I ask for a motion, Mr. Fraz? Second by Mr. Heyman. Are there any thoughts, comments at this time? Okay. If not, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Barrero. Davis. Ford. Fraz. Gilliam.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Hoshite.
Yes.
Ismail. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kozarik.
Yes.
Leonard. Lewis.
Yes.
Martin. Molina. Pollock. Sheffro. Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett.
Yes.
Winecki.
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes unanimously. And again, Mrs. Vasquez, we're very sorry for our mutual loss, for your family's loss, but more importantly, the service. We celebrate Jesse's. You know, one of the things that was wonderfully strong about Mr. Vasquez is that you didn't always have to agree with him. He didn't always have to agree with you in order to be friends and to be colleagues. So thank you. Next on the agenda are appointments. The Mill Creek Special Service Area Advisory Body. If I could have a motion to approve the appointments to that body. So moved by Mr. Fraz, second by Ms. Allen. I believe that the backgrounds on those people were in the package of material that went out to all the board members. Any discussion, comments, questions? Mr. Fraz?
Chairman, the Mill Creek SSA Board oversees it's the citizens' face in Mill Creek that reports to us ultimately. But 6 of our 8 members are due for reappointment. All are current board members, and all are anxious to continue to serve. We've got a real great active board out there right now. It's been a pleasure to work with them, and they all have diverse skills that benefit the board. So I'm very happy to recommend this.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mr. Kenyon?
How large is Mill Creek?
It's about 1,200 acres roughly, but we always use the number of 4,500 citizens. 4,500.
4,500 people. It's as big as a lot of towns. It is, and these people in the county take care of all their jobs. So actually, it's run pretty efficiently. They use the county sheriff. They don't have to have their own police force, and on and on and on. It's a good deal for them, and they're a part of it. So this is not what's going to happen in the future. It just ended up that way. But I only wanted to say this for the new board members to know what Mill Creek is. It's a big place out there.
Yeah, big place full of nice people.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Rich people.
Good.
What did you say?
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, if not, the clerk will call the roll.
Allen. Auger.
Yes.
Barrero. Davis.
Yes.
Ford. Yes. Fraz. Gilliam.
Yes.
Heyman.
Yes.
Hoshite. Yes. Ismail. Kenyon.
Yes.
Kozarik.
Yes.
Leonard. Lewis. Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Pollock. Sheffro.
Yes.
Silva. Smith.
Yes.
Sterrett. Winecki.
Okay, so the motion passes. Okay, may I have a motion? Next on the agenda is executive session. We do have a need to go in. May I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation, real estate negotiations, any other public health issues that come up? So moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by Mr. Kozarek. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. We'll take the roll once we go into executive session. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is speakers on non-agenda items. We have 4 people who have signed up to speak on the proposed Longmeadow Parkway. Let's see. Would each of the following please come forward and spell your name for the record? And let's see. First, let's start with Joanne Fritz. Ms. Fritz, it's nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Joanne Fritz, I live in Dundee.
And now let me ask you, our practice is typically about a 3-minute section.
Yes.
And would that fit in your plans?
It'll be less than that. Okay, thank you so much, dear Kane County board members. I respectfully come to you today to address just one aspect of the proposed Longmeadow Parkway. For your consideration, it's being proposed it's in Carpentersville. I know the area well. I taught at Perry Elementary, which is a elementary school, which is just less than a half a mile away from the proposed parkway. Taught there for 13 years, and I know the residents there enjoy a very safe, serene, and a peaceful area. Their families take a lot of pride in their property and their homes and their children. The plans that are being proposed would place a 4-lane highway in very close proximity of the front yards of the homes on Bulls Road and in the backyard of another residential area called Silver Lake, where there also is another District 300 elementary school. There actually are 3 District 300 schools located in that area, the 2 elementary schools and Dundee Crown High School. This beautiful and serene setting will be destroyed and polluted with noise and exhaust fumes. In addition, the plans that are proposed prevent access for that whole residential area. They prevent access onto Route 25, which would actually reroute all the traffic from that residential area, neighboring Bulls Road, to Kings Road, which is approximately a half a mile down the road. There is no other access for that neighborhood onto Route 25. Kings Road is a highly congested 2-lane residential street that is greatly in need of repair, and it's the only street with access to Dundee Community High School. At the beginning and end of the day, Kings Road is backed up bumper to bumper. So not only would the Longmeadow Parkway destroy a very serene residential setting, it would also severely jeopardize the safety of the residents and the population of the schools in case of a fire or emergency. Fire and police response would be severely affected. The safety of the Dundee Crown, Perry Elementary, and all the residents in that neighborhood. Rerouting all the residents onto an already packed 2-lane residential street puts everyone in the homes and the schools at risk and jeopardize the response rate for fire, ambulance, and police. The Longmeadow Parkway is not in the best interest of the residents that live in that area. I respectfully ask the board members to reconsider their support of this poorly designed project. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fritz. And thank you very much for your career in teaching. How many years?
30.
Did you say 30?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Nice going. Thank you. Next, Luann Lewandowski. And is the 3-minute section fit your plan? Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Luann Lewandowski, Luanne-Lewandowski. Thank you for letting me speak today. I can see the Fox River from my office window in my home in West Dundee. I'm very concerned about the impact the proposed bridge will have on the Fox. I've seen the KDOT presentation twice and the flyover video, and I sincerely believe that the bridge with those giant pilings, those legs, that go into the water and the 4 lanes of rapid traffic are overkill and have not been thought through. There are no other comparable large, pristine stretches with wildlife and great beauty along the Fox River left. Rare birds and plants, which are unique to the area, will be lost to us forever. Salt, oil, antifreeze, and garbage from the bridge will have only one way to go, into the river. What about the aquatic life in there? Do you fish? The new bypass in Algonquin has already changed the situation that was thought to necessitate the bridge for Kane County. Now it seems it's not really for us after all, but for McHenry County residents who will benefit from it. We depend on you, on all of you, to act on our behalf. Please stop. Please revisit the bridge proposal and help us protect our precious river. Visit those neighborhoods nearby and talk to the residents who need to be heard and have their questions answered. Assure us that we won't be taxed to pay for an oversized bridge that will do more harm than good for us and our river. Please hurry. We're running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lewandowski. Next is Stephen Keebler. Thank you, Mr. Keebler. Does the 3-minute practice?
3.5 would be great. If
3.5 you have.
Ted over.
All right.
Let's make a deal.
Stephen Keebler, Keibler. I live in Dundee Township. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As you contemplate whether or not to approve the construction of the Long Meadow Parkway and Toll Bridge, I urge each member of the Kane County Board to visit Trout Park in Elgin. Go to the baseball field on Route 25 and take a short walk in the woods to the north and listen. It doesn't matter what time of day you go, early morning, midday, or late night, just listen. Listen to the constant, never-ending roar of trucks and trucks and trucks and motorcycles and motorcycles, and in between, cars and more cars. Listen to the engine noise, listen to the tire noise, smell the diesel exhaust. Then, when you think you've heard enough, use your imagination and imagine you're a member of our community that doesn't have a voice. Imagine you're a bird or a small animal, something that needs to have a quiet place like a forest preserve to survive and breed and live out its short time here on Earth. Imagine the impact of all this road noise on the creatures we share the Earth with. This never-ending noise is what's coming to the Bruner Forest Preserve if this road and toll bridge are built. Please don't take my word for it. Go listen. We've all seen a parking lot after a rainstorm. We've all seen that greasy sheen left behind by leaking vehicles. If this road and toll bridge are built, that leaking oil and gasoline and antifreeze, that dripping grease, those heavy metals from wearing tires are all going to go into the Fox River and our local aquifer. So is the salt spray from tires roaring at 70 miles an hour. If we think it'll go into a detention pond somewhere, we delude ourselves. It's going into the Fox River and the wetlands along its edges, and from there into our drinking water, and from there into our bodies. The construction of the Long Meadow Parkway and Toll Bridge will condemn all citizens of northern Kane County, your constituents, to lives filled with noise pollution, light pollution, air pollution, and water pollution. In this day and age, with all we know about air and water pollution, with all we know about noise and light pollution, we have no business building this road and toll bridge anywhere. We especially have no business building it through a forest preserve and a heavily residential area where there will be no escape from the never-ending onslaught of noise. It's unconscionable that land owned by the Kane County Forest Preserve and paid for by citizens of Kane County would be put to such use. It's a barbaric, short-sighted, hugely expensive attempt at a solution that will solve nothing. It's also a huge gamble as well as a poor investment. If you do nothing else before you vote on this, please at least go to Trout Park and listen. Thank you for allowing me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keebler. Next on the list is Domenico D'Alessandro. Mr. D'Alessandro.
Domenico D'Alessandro, D-O-M-E-N-I-C-O, D'*A-L-E-S-S-A-N-D-R-O. Dear Kane County Board, I welcome this opportunity to comment on the proposed Long Meadow Parkway. I stand before you as a person with 25 years in the landscape architecture and planning profession. My work has received many awards, including those from US EPA, Chicago Wilderness, an Integrated Habitat Design Competition, an international award from London, England. In all my years of experience designing projects in Europe, Canada, Mexico, and the USA, I have never come across such an ill-conceived, terribly designed, badly engineered, and obscure project as this one. For example, the claim that this is the most ecologically friendly option defies logic, given that the parkway dissects the very last large open space adjacent to the Fox River in our region, an area crucial to recharging our local aquifers, maintaining healthy aquatic habitats, and migratory bird corridors. Or when asked if the design intent, their own design, to protect existing neighborhoods from impact by parkway traffic could be achieved, the response was a timid, "We will try." In my professional experience, "We will try," translate to, "We will not be able to do so." There has also been a constant reference made to potential funding sources at a time of fiscal stress to the local, state, and federal levels. It eventually all comes back down to one main source: tax the residents of Kane County to the tune of more than $100 million, and subsequent additional cost for the maintenance in perpetuity of a project that does not even resolve the very problem it claims to address: traffic congestion. This proposal was first conceived in 1994 with the perceived needs in mind of a future that did not fully materialize. It is time to judge this project with updated criteria that best fit our current and future needs. My personal experience with at least one public workshop on this project witnessed the organizers' disregard of dissenting opinions, thus skewing the outcome. It is impossible and unfair to expect a long list of concerns regarding this project to be given in a 3-minute time slot. Given that the proponents had 20 years to promote this project, I respectfully request the growing number of dissenting stakeholders be given the opportunity to present a 20-minute PowerPoint to address concerns to this board. The exchange of 1 minute for each year is the minimum that can be granted to show a sense of fair play. The tax revenue dedicated to this project could be directed to actual needs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Mr. D'Alessandro. Next up, Tara Jacobson. Did Tara come? No? Okay. May I ask, first of all, every person who spoke this morning, thank you for the board for your attention. Thank you for the speakers who came today. You are certainly welcome to come and speak, and we appreciate the thoughts that you've shared with us. Have you spoken to the Transportation Committee? Because that's the, within our work, the Transportation Committee is where the work starts. The recommendation is then made, and it goes through the Executive Committee and then to the board as a whole. Again, you're always welcome here, but I think that where the formulation of policy and recommendations to the board of the whole in its detail is at the Transportation Committee. So are you aware of the Transportation Committee, or have you spoken there?
We have
Just have you, yes, it's a yes or no.
No, we have not.
Not yet?
We're just getting organized because we just found out about the project, believe it or not. We were told that this is a done deal, that the money is in place, and there's no discussion. So we did a little bit of research, and we found out the money is not in place. They do not have the Army Corps Engineers permit. Everything is still up in the air. So why is this being presented as a done deal?
I understand. My recommendation would be to go to the Transportation Committee. That's where things are formulated in its detail. So, and can I ask, and you naturally you live in different areas, maybe relatively close to each other. Who are your individual board members? Do you know who your board members are?
Yes, Maggie Auger and Becky Gillum.
Okay. And is that the case for everyone?
Oh, and I'm sorry, Joe.
Joe?
Yes, Heyman.
Okay. And is that true for everyone? Okay.
For everybody.
All right. Thank you. That's good to know. And then any responses from any of those board members? Any thoughts? Okay. Mr. Fraz is the chairman of the Transportation Committee. Did you have a thought?
Yeah, I would just like to thank them for coming, and I certainly appreciate your comments. This project, as you mentioned, has been under discussion for 20 years, and it was driven by all of your local communities up there, brought to the county by their request. We have had a abundance of environmental studies on this, which I'd be happy to share with you. We have a 3-phase engineering process. That's once everything is agreed upon. So this project has long been approved by the county board. We're well into phase 2 engineering, phase 1 engineering, which involves the environmental issues. So, you know, unfortunately, it's not just the 11th hour. It's about 3 o'clock on this project. So, you know, you're welcome to come and speak, and I don't want to not give you hope, but this project has been under discussion for a long, long time.
Do you mind if I respond to that?
This is really not the place to have a
Thank you.
debate, but you've been welcomed and invited by the chairman of the Transportation Committee, and I appreciate your thoughts. So now, is there anyone else who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Oh, you know, we're going to come to board members, if not from the public. I should have been more specific.
2 things. The coroner asked us to announce that he's having an open house and tour for the newly renovated morgue, and I couldn't get TR to demonstrate the journey. But, I guess we shouldn't joke about death. And the other thing is,
you do it.
next month is March, and that's the youth month with the 4-H people, and Barbara and I will be working with them they'll be coming and attending the county board. You'll be asked if you want to let a youth shadow you. And they sit here, and then they have their own board meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Wonicky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On that same note, I think you all received this letter from Doris, and there's a deadline for signing up. It's Wednesday, February 25th. The children shadow you, and they learn the inner workings of your role in county government. And after we leave the county, we go for a luncheon over at the U of I Extension Center, which is on Randall Road, just north of 38. So try to participate. The kids are great, and it's just a great program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Pollack?
Thank you. Our county's legislative breakfast will be Monday, March 9th. You'll be getting an invitation sent out to all of us. I've got the letters going out to our legislators. I've talked to pretty much all of them personally so far, and we're going to have good attendance. So as the county does not have lobbyists, it is incumbent on all of us to be good lobbyists, to work with our legislators. We've discussed our agenda at legislative. If you guys want to come to our meetings, that's great, but we'll be presenting it formally to our legislators, and we'd love to have you all there.
Thank you, Mr. Pollack. And we do have the 25 best lobbyists around this table. So, you know, the old expression about if you want something done right,
Do it yourself.
do it yourself, and that's what you're doing. And I know that our constituents appreciate that. And the organization that's going in from that committee is really outstanding. Any other comments or announcements for the good of the body? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Mr. Heyman, second by Mr. Kenyon. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it.